wonderful holidays, full of good activities and with plenty of time for rest and some fun. I also hope you had a chance to think a little bit about the holidays and their meaning. For indeed, for most of us, these holidays are holy days, times to explore issues of faith and support and spirit. And before we charge back into classes and teams and activities, I want to reflect with you a bit this morning about some larger issues of spirit. Indeed, it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful that we gather as a school, not in an auditorium or some sterile space, but instead in this Hamilton chapel, or as I like to call it, echoing the Puritans who first settled New England, our meeting house. This is the place where we meet, where we gather as a school community. A big reason why I want to talk about matters of heart and spirit this morning comes from the fact that I spent last week with my family, all together now 17 strong, at my brother's home in Los Angeles. I never take for granted the fact that my parents are still alive at ages 83 and 82. Yes, even heads of school have parents. And it's special to bring together 4 generations for a full week, and remarkably not only get together, but also get along so well, or at least reasonably well, for at least most of the time. So themes for today: family and community and faith. This coming February will mark 5 years since my father was diagnosed with stage 4 advanced gastroesophageal cancer. The fact that he is still alive is remarkable. We are all grateful, and he recognizes how lucky he is. He often talks about the doctors at Northwestern Medical Center in Chicago. He calls them his wizards, for they have combined diligent care and at least 2 different medical trials to keep him not only alive but energetic. At this point, they call his survival, in positive terms, an aberration. The hospital even made him a poster child, literally, for their successful treatment. But this season of the year, when Jews celebrate Hanukkah, the festival of lights, and the miracle of that holiday, when there was only enough oil to keep the Holy Temple's lamp lit for 1 day, but it somehow lasted for 8 days, we think of my father's survival as miraculous as well. And it has been our ritual for almost 30 years. We spent part of our December holiday planning our fishing trip to Idaho for next summer. But even as this February marks 5 years since my dad's diagnosis, February also marks 10 years since Darren Gallup died. Many of you know about Darren. We give an award in his memory at Prize Day each year, but probably more do not. Darren Gallup was a 6th former, a 3-sport varsity athlete at Belmont Hill in football, hockey, and lacrosse, also a fine pianist who had been admitted early to Harvard. He died on the night of Valentine's Day, February 14, 2003, in a single-car accident. It was a Friday night, and Darren and some friends had gotten together after the varsity hockey game that night. He was a little late for curfew, and as he headed home, his Jeep hit a patch of ice. The car flipped, and Darren, who was not wearing a seatbelt, was thrown from the car and killed. He was 18 years old. I tell you about Darren today, not primarily as a cautionary tale, though it should be one, but because 2 weeks ago, on December 19, just after we got out of school for break, several of us attended the funeral for Lisa Gallup, Darren's younger sister, who died of sarcoma, a form of bone cancer. She was 26 years old. Lisa, too, had received a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. But unlike my father's situation, the doctors were not able to figure out a treatment regimen that could save her. Although Lisa was young and energetic, herself a 3-sport varsity athlete at Wellesley High, and she too battled. Her battle lasted only 14 months. I've thought a lot about Lisa and the Gallups over the last 2 weeks. Was there anything positive to take from what had happened? I've struggled to find even small moments of solace. This is a strong family, a religious family, a family of faith. And I took some small comfort from knowing that because in the final weeks the cancer made Lisa's fate clear, the family was able to say its goodbyes, and she was able to let go and die peacefully. the congregation that overflowed the church in Wellesley, in both Mr. Gallup's words and those of the Gallup surviving child Barry, a member of Belmont Hill class of 2006, provided a heartfelt tribute to Lisa. So, small solace, perhaps, but I can find nothing good in Lisa Gallup's death. Indeed, I can't imagine what her parents are feeling. It is said that the most difficult kind of loss a person can bear is the loss of one's child. For this good family to endure the loss of 2 children so young is beyond my comprehension. I thus found myself leaving the church having taken little solace from the service, as lovely and gracious as it was. I could take little comfort from the minister's thoughtful words. Indeed, I left the church feeling not only upset, but angry. Darren's death 10 years ago had been a tragedy, probably the hardest time for Belmont Hill that I have seen in my years here. And the pain for the family then had been unimaginable. For this good family to face this again, well, this certainly tested my faith, and I kept thinking about their faith as well. What does it mean to have faith? Faith in who or what? In God? What kind of God would take Lisa, especially after taking Darren? And that drove me to think about another tragedy of last month that we spoke about just before break. What kind of God could allow the deaths of 20 innocent children down in Newtown, Connecticut? 1, 20, 6 million. I grew up with the fact that 6 million innocent Jews were slaughtered by the Nazis during World War II. How does anyone wrap his or her brain around that fact? I know that for my father, who was born in 1929 and lived through World War II as a high school student, your age, once he came to grips with the Holocaust, he concluded that there could not be a God, for God could never allow such an unspeakable horror on such a scale. Or maybe I've been thinking, maybe God doesn't have that kind of power, the kind that determines when we live and when we die. But if there is no higher being that has that power, where does such power reside? In each of us? Maybe in none of us. Is life that random? I realize that I'm asking serious questions of you this morning. But whether you are a first former or a sixth former or a member of the faculty, the questions are real and they matter. Many of us bring different conceptions of God to the school. Some bring no belief in God at all. But all of us can, and I believe should, think about how we understand our place in the universe. That is the fundamental question of our existence. And events of these past weeks, from holy days, holidays, to Lisa's death, push us to ask those questions anew. These 2 February anniversaries, one tragic and one hopeful, have led me to think a little differently of late about this matter of faith. Perhaps we think about faith not only in regard to a higher being, but in regard to each other, or perhaps to our community, perhaps the school community. After all, if having faith means having trust in others, belief in others, or in knowing that others support you or can provide solace, then maybe some faith is closer at hand and broader. In that way, the people at the church at Lisa's service took strength from one another, had faith in one another. In happy and sad times, many of you show that you have faith in one another. You lean on each other in good times and bad. You care for one another and count on others to take care of you. You have faith in teachers or coaches or advisors. They have earned your trust, and you give it freely to them, building great bonds. You build it through activities, the closeness of a team, the circle of trust that comes in a theater production, the reliance on one another in a jazz band or an orchestra. We want to have faith in others. One might say that we even need such faith to give us strength. As I watched our family over the holidays, I started thinking about what spiritual direction our now married daughters will give their children. How does one provide a base for young people? Religious practices can offer real meaning. Traditions, stories, rituals, values, some conception of God, or some higher authority in the universe. What spiritual preparation can a school, this school, provide as you go out in the world? Your religious beliefs and practices generally come from your family. It is not the school's role to provide those. But I still think about our responsibility in helping you prepare for the difficult times in life that are, in fact, part of life. Sometimes we simply learn when a situation arises. A tragic time like Lisa's death. Last year, the way all of the sixth form and many of you joined together to honor Danny Sappler's father when he passed away. I also know that many of you have had to face difficult situations within your own families over the years. The point this morning is that for all the fun of the holidays, there were also holy days. For all that this season can be joyous for many of us, for some families, whether close to home like the Gallups or further afield down in Connecticut, this was a time of loss and sorrow. My wishes for you in this new year thus come in three parts. First, I hope you consider and embrace the good fortune in your life with humility and gratitude. Second, and equally important, I hope you remember that not all share in that good fortune, and that an important belief that we hope this school provides is your growing understanding of and empathy for others. Finally, I hope that you examine your own issues of faith, what you believe in, how it helps you understand the world around you, how it provides direction and purpose in your life. The more you can do that now, the better you will be prepared for what life places before you. And know that your faith will be tested, for that is indeed part of life. May you accept, may you remember, may you examine. Those are my wishes for you in this new year. Sixth one.